I am sewing live. If you want to hear the when, the where, and the how, keep on watching this video. Hey Stitches, your girl Chris here. Welcome back to my channel. If you are finding me for the first time, then welcome. I hope you will enjoy it here enough that you will consider subscribing to come back for more of my videos. If you are a returning viewer, then thank you so much for tuning back in with me for yet another video. I am so grateful to have you here in my sewing space. So you guys, I am going to be doing a live sew along. Actually, I probably shouldn't even call it a sew along because it's not going to be like an instructional. It's more like a sew with me or maybe a hack with me because your girl is sewing up a hack of Simplicity 9598. I'll drop the line drawings or the envelope in here so you can see what pattern I'm talking about. It is a Mimi G pattern and it came out, I think, within the last 2 or so years. Now, this pattern has 2 size envelopes. The smaller size ranges, I think, from a 0 up to a 22 or 24. And then there's a larger size band for women's. Now I can see the pattern cover like right in my mind's eye. It has Aronica of Aronica B. Cole on the cover, but I cannot recall what the size band is for the larger pattern sizes. So I'll go ahead and check that out and then I'll leave the information on the screen so that you guys can know exactly what sizes this pattern comes in. Now I'm really happy that this one is very size inclusive. It means that if you are on the smaller size range or if you are on the larger size range, you can grab out this pattern and give it a try with me during my hack along, sew along type of situation. Now I'm going to be doing this sew along, sew live, whatever, on Tuesday, the 16th of July at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am so excited and honestly a little bit nervous about doing this live sewing session. Now I've gone live once before, but the last time I went live with Jilly of the Curated Curvy. And so it was a lot easier, I think, because I had somebody that I could have spoken to directly. And even though there were like comments coming in, it still felt a little bit easier. And it also meant that somebody else was helping me to read those comments and to respond while also trying to sew live. But I did enjoy the experience and I figured, why not try it again? So this time I'm pulling up my big girl panties and I'm going live by myself. Now I'm going to sew up Simplicity 9598, as I said. I don't know, I had bought 2 fabrics and I was thinking about what I wanted to sew next. Now I have been in a little bit of a sewing slump for the last couple of days. I think after my birthday, I was just exhausted. Like from a sewing perspective, I was knackered. And so I hadn't been sewing very much. But then I saw that my girl Diana of 26 by Diana is hosting this month's Sew Your View, which was the Mood Clementine dress. And so you know your girl had to support Diana. And so I went ahead and downloaded that pattern and I have started sewing it together. That sort of just kick-started my sewing juices and I wanted to get back in the game. And I decided to do up Simplicity 9598. But then, of course, this month is the Pack and Hackathon hosted by yours truly. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to sew up this pattern, then I should go ahead and do a hack of this pattern. So that is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I'm going to be sharing with you the behind the scenes of the hack of this pattern. I'm going to walk you through the process of how to accomplish this hack. I'm going to show you my fabric, let you know all of the things that you might need if you want to sew along with me on Tuesday. And then I will invite you guys to come back here on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and join in with me with this sew along. Now, for my hack, I decided that I wanted to do a puff sleeve situation on this dress. To do that, it means I'm going to slash and spread and add tons of volume to my sleeve pattern piece. Now, because of the silhouette of this dress, I thought that the puff sleeves would be really cute. It has a cute back out detail, and I felt like this would sort of elevate the pattern from a more casual pattern to something that's a little bit more fashion forward. However, your girl is a rectangular body shape, which means that the difference between my bust, waist, and hips is less than 10 inches. Or is it shoulders, waist, and hips? Shoulders, bust, and hips? Whatever. My upper half and my lower half are less than 10 inches in difference. And so I am a rectangular body shape. Now, once I decided I wanted to go ahead and add all that volume to my sleeve, I was second guessing the skirt situation on this pattern just because it is like a pencil skirt. And I felt like adding so much volume to my shoulders would end up making me look kind of top heavy, like big shoulders and then slim fit throughout. And because your girl does not have so much going on with the hips, I just felt I needed to add some volume at my hip area. Now, I have seen this, I think it's called a Basque skirt. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, you guys can go ahead and correct me in the comment section because I know you will be itching to do so. But I think it's called a Basque skirt and it has sort of like a inverted triangle sort of shape at the skirt. And then it has like gathers around the hip. I'm going to go ahead and drop in an inspiration picture here so that you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But I saw this skirt and I wanted that skirt on this bodice pattern. So I've gone ahead also and hacked the skirt pieces of this pattern, which I'll also be sharing with you in this video. Now, it wasn't a very complicated hack, but it does require you to pay attention and to do your maths and your measuring correctly. So please follow along closely with the tutorial. Now, I think I should hit pause right here and then just get straight into sharing with you the hack first of the sleeve pattern. So let's do it. So I've gone ahead and printed off my pattern. This is Simplicity 9598 and it is in the PDF copy. It has 36 pages and I've already gone ahead and trimmed down each of the pages. Now I do have a tutorial here on the channel about how to go ahead and put together Simplicity PDF patterns because you will find that they are just a little bit different to your regular PDF patterns in terms of the assembly. So if you have no idea how to put a Simplicity PDF pattern together, be sure to go ahead and check this video. I'll drop it here on the screen somewhere so that you can find it easily. If you already know, then let's put our pattern pieces together and then we can talk about the sizing. All right, so these are my pattern pieces. I put them together and I have gone ahead and done some basic fitting adjustments off camera. Now I have done the length adjustments to the actual printed pattern itself because no matter what size I'm going to use, I know I'm going to need to do these adjustments. So I've done a 1/4 inch hollow hip on the back skirt. I have gone ahead and shortened the back bodice by 1/2 inch and I've done it through this line right here because this is the side seam and so I want it shortened throughout the center from the side seam to the center back. So I've done it here 1/2 inch. This is the front pattern piece and I've gone ahead and shortened it 1/4 inch between the shoulder and the bust to accommodate my forward rotated shoulders. I've shortened it at the waistline by 1/2 inch and I've also gone ahead and done the 1/4 inch hollow hip adjustment. Now I need to do one additional adjustment to my bodice pieces and it's going to be the sloping shoulder adjustment. I haven't done it yet just because of the shape of the back bodice. I want to be sure that I'm doing it correctly. Now for my sleeve piece, I've gone ahead and traced off the size 16 blended to an 18 for my sleeve. Now I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a size 16 blended to an 18 in the bodice main, and so I've traced off the sleeve just to reflect what I'm going to need for my bodice main. However, I think I'm going to go ahead and hack my sleeve to create a puff sleeve. So I'm going to insert a lot of volume at the sleeve head and I'm going to insert some volume as well at the sleeve hem. I did forget to mention that I also lengthened the short sleeve by 1 inch. So those are the adjustments that I have made so far. I'm going to go ahead now, I think, and do my sloping shoulder adjustment and then I can come back and show you guys how I'm going to hack this sleeve from a basic sleeve to a puff sleeve. Before I do that hack though, I think I might need to go ahead and trace off the hemline of my sleeve as is because I think I'm going to need to create a hem band for the sleeve because as I said, I'm going to hack it. But let me give that just a little bit more thought whilst I work on the sloping shoulder adjustment. So I have traced out my sleeve piece. I'm pretty sure you can't see it because I use pencil, but for my hack, I'm going to go ahead and use this fine tip Sharpie that I now have. The sleeve piece is just like a general sleeve piece. There's no ease in the sleeve cap, and I want to turn this sleeve into a puff sleeve. So that is what we're going to work on now. All right, to do this hack, the first thing I want to do is to identify where my bicep is going to go. So I'm just measuring down 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to use my pencil just for these lines because I don't want to get confused when I actually do my hacking lines using my marker. Once I've got my seam allowances in place, I'm going to line up my sleeve with the grain line, and then I'm just going to square across from seam allowance to seam allowance. Now, once I have my bicep line drawn in, I'm just going to fold my pattern piece in half, matching up my side seams and creasing my sleeve. Now, this is giving me the center of my sleeve. Again, I'm just going to use my pencil because I'm not going to want to get confused with my actual cutting lines. So now I have divided my sleeve into 4. I'm really sorry if you can't see it, but I don't want to have to confuse you when I start drawing in the actual lines to turn the sleeve into a puff sleeve. So now I've got my sleeve chambered off into 4. I'm going to go and put in some markings on my sleeve, which I will want to cut apart. All right, since I'm going to actually cut apart at the center front, I can actually go in and mark my center sleeve using my Sharpie. So this is my center line. Then I want to create 3 additional markings on one side and 3 additional markings on the opposite side. Now the easiest way for me to do that is to measure across my sleeve pattern, and then I am going to divide what I get by 3. But first I'm just going to go in and draw in my seam allowance like so, which is 5/8 of an inch from my side seam. Once I have that done, I'm just measuring from my seam allowance right up to my center, and I get 6.5. Now I need to divide 6.5 by 3, which is going to give me 2 3/16 of an inch, I think. So I'm just going to use 2¼ inches for each marking. I'll put it with a pencil first. And that means that the distance from this marking to my center front is just going to be 2 inches. So it's just going to be a little bit less. So I'm just going to repeat it on the other side. So I'm going to measure over 2¼ from the center of my sleeve, like so. And then I'm going to measure 2⅛ right the way over to the marking for my side seam. Once I have those dots in, I'm going to go and draw a couple of lines straight through my sleeve. I want these lines to be parallel to my grain line, just like so. So I've got my sleeve divided up into, I think, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the 2 sides with the seam allowance will go. I'm just going to write some numbers in pencil. And I have 8 right across the board because I'm going to cut along these lines, and I don't want to mix up the sleeve, because when I put it back together, I want to make sure that my sleeve has the correct shape. Now that has been done, I'm going to go ahead and cut them apart. And I'm going to cut right to the sleeve because I am going to make this sleeve into a puff sleeve. All right, so these are what my sleeve pieces now look like. So I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper. You probably want to use something that's bigger than this, but I'm just going to use pieces of scrap paper to fill in right across the board, just so that I can save a little bit of paper. And the first thing that I want to do is to draw a line on my sheet of paper, and I'm going to use my grid at the bottom or underneath, and again I'm going to just draw in this line in pencil. Once I have drawn that line, I'm going to draw a second line, which is an inch away from the first line, and then an inch away on the opposite side, just like so. So I've got 3 lines, and this is going to be sort of like my guideline for putting my sleeve pieces back together. So I'm going to look for pieces number 4 and 5, which were right at the center of my sleeve, and I'm going to go and stick piece 4 into place along one of those lines, like so, and I want to stick piece 5 where I put the second marking away from my center front mark. I want to make sure that my piece number 5 lines up at the bicep with my piece number 4. So I'm just going to shift my pattern piece upwards on my grid mat, just so everything is lined up with my grid underneath, and that makes it a lot easier for me to see what I'm working with. So I'm sticking piece number 5 along the second marking, and I'm making sure that my bicep line lines up with this solid yellow line on my grid. Once I'm satisfied, then I'm going to stick this one into place as well. So we now have a 2-inch gap between piece number 4 and piece number 5. Now I'm just going to repeat this process for all of my other sleeve pieces. So I'm going to work on the right side of my sleeve first. So I'm lining up my ruler with my cut line, marking in the 2-inch gap. Then I'm just going to trim it away just beyond the 2-inch gap, just to save some paper. And then I'm going to grab piece number 6. Make sure again that my grain line is lined up with my grid, and that my bicep line is also lined up with my grid. And then I can stick piece number 6 into place. Just like so. When you are done, you will end up with a very big, and if you're anything like me, quite untidy sleeve piece. Now, because we have cut and spread across our sleeve, it means that our sleeve cap is sort of all over the place. To rectify that, the first thing we want to do is to draw a horizontal line perpendicular to the grain line, connecting the top of our sleeve cap, like so. Then we want to go and measure up about 3 or 4 inches. I think I'm going to go for 4 inches because I want a nice big puffy sleeve. And this is why, if you have lots of paper at your disposal, it probably makes better sense to use a fresh piece of paper. Oh, by creature of habit, I keep drawing from my pencil. Let's try this again. So we've put our horizontal line in here, connecting the sleeve cap, like so. And now we want to go and measure up about 4 inches. Now clearly I don't have enough paper here, so I'm going to have to go in and fill in some more. So I've measured up and I've put a marking 4 inches up from this center line. Oops, that's not center. Chris, what are you doing? So this is my marking right here at the center line, just like so. Now what we need to do, we need to connect this new marking to the sleeve at the side seam. Now you probably can just sketch it in roughly, maintaining that gentle curve up towards your center line, but I'm thinking maybe I just want to use my ruler. So I'm going to draw it in first in pencil just to get an idea of the shape that I'm going for. And then I can just smooth out my line right about here. Just like so. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you do want to have a nice smooth line from your side seam right the way up to your sleeve cap. And then you want to repeat that on the opposite side. So I'm just going to go and cut this out. I've actually folded my sleeve in half just because that will make it much easier for me to try and get the same type of shape on both sides of my sleeve. And this is what we're left with. Let me see if I can zoom out so you guys can get a better look. So this is now what our sleeve looks like. I need to go and secure my pieces of paper beneath, but you can get an idea of the curve of my sleeve right at the top. Now the next thing I need to go and do is to true up the bottom of my sleeve. All right, so I've trimmed away all of the excess paper, and this is now what our sleeve looks like. So when I go to sew this sleeve, I'm going to gather from the back notches here over to my front notch here, and that will create lots of gathering and puffiness around the sleeve cap right here. Then I'm going to gather the bottom of my sleeve between the seam allowances, and that is going to give me the puffed sleeve effect. All right, folks, there you have it. That was a hack of the sleeve pattern. As you can see, it's not very complicated. We are slashing and spreading right the way through the sleeve and just increasing the volume by as much as you want. Now, I think this is going to sew beautifully in my knit fabric. I kind of sort of started second guessing myself, wondering if I had added too much volume to my sleeve, but I haven't done a toile, and I am going to be living on the edge because I'm not going to have the time to have a toile done between now on Sunday when I'm recording this video and on Tuesday, which is like 2 days away. So fingers crossed, I haven't added too much volume. Hopefully it will be just the right amount. Now that you have seen the sleeve hack, let's get into the skirt hack, which is even more interesting in my opinion than the sleeve hack. So let's do it. To create this Basque skirt type situation, the first thing I'm going to do is measure in 4 inches from my side seam at the hemline. Now I'm using the shorter skirt as my guide because more than likely I want to have a short skirt. So I'm measuring 4 inches in from the size 20 because I'm thinking that the size 20 is likely to be my sizing on my skirt. Now, when I go up to the waistline, I'm going to find where the pattern has demarcated the waistline, and I'm just going to draw a line connecting it from the side seam, oops, right across so I know where my waistline is. I sort of went rogue right here, so I'm just erasing it right here. Once I have my waistline demarcated, I'm now going to measure down 4 inches from my waistline. And again, I'm using the size 20 seam line. So I'm just going to put a mark right here. I'm also looking for my hip line, and this is demarcated right here. And so I'm going to connect a line right across my dress piece through the hip line right here. Now from this hip line, I am going to measure down, I want to say 3 inches from my hip line right here. And then I'm going to draw a line that is parallel to my grain line from the 4-inch mark at my hemline right up to where I put that little mark for below my hip line, right about there. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Perhaps I should switch to my Sharpie. Right, just like so. Now I drew a line 4 inches down from the hip line. I now want to connect this marking right here with this marking right here, and I want to use my curved ruler to create that effect. So marking my ruler there. And I'm now going to draw in a curve from this point straight down to connect to my straight line right here. And this is what we now have. Once I have this drawn in, I now need to go ahead and cut out the size that I'll be using for my dress pattern. Now, I think again that I'm going to use a size 16 at the neckline and the arm side, blended to a size 18 down to the bust, out to a 20 at the waist, and then maintain the 20 throughout the hip and down to the hemline. So that is what I think I'm going to do. Now, the reason I am a little bit hesitant is because I am using a PK knit, and that tends not to have as much stretch as, say, like a jersey knit or something like that. And I have been toying with the idea of possibly sizing up, but I think I'm comforted by the fact that this has a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and so I can probably baste it together just to get an idea of how it fits. And if it is a little bit too snug, then I can let out the side seams some. So I'm thinking that is what I'm going to go ahead and do. So you might notice that my lines are quite jagged here, and this is from making all my length adjustments. So I'm just going to go and true up all of my seam lines and then cut out the sizes that I need before I start cutting out this line right here and continuing with the hack of the skirt portion of this make. All right, so I now have my pattern piece entirely cut out, and so I can start messing about with this curve right here. So the first thing that I need to do is to cut out my seam line. Actually, before I do that, I think I just want to put in a couple of notches because it will make reattaching this skirt much easier. So I'm going to put a notch right here at the hip line, which is where I started my curve. So I'm separating this piece. This is going to become like my go day insert sort of piece. And this is now what my center front dress looks like. Now, because I'm creating a seam line right here, I need to be sure to go ahead and add in some seam allowance. So I need to grab some scrap paper. Just stick it into place from the hemline, right the way up the curve. This is so that I don't end up nicking any width from my skirt. If I don't do this, then the circumference of my skirt is going to be narrower by 1 1/4 inches, 5/8 of an inch on either side of my skirt. So actually it's going to be narrower by 2.5 inches because I'm doing this process on both sides of my dress. So I'm first going to just mark in my 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to trim along it. Right there, and then I'm just attaching my scrap paper higher up so that I can complete the seam allowance. I'm just switching to my gauge because I can slide it and then I can just complete my seam allowance right here. If you want to get yourself one of these gadgets, you can use the link in the description box to my Amazon storefront. This is one of my favorite sewing tools. It just makes marking so much easier. So once I've got it roughly in place, I can just smooth in my lines just like so and cut it out. So this is what my completed front bodice piece now looks like. All right, before I can do my slash and spread, I need to repeat the same process on my back skirt. So I'm going to measure down 4 inches from the waistline. So the first thing I want to do is to draw a line through my waistline. Right here on the pattern, the waistline is indicated. I'm going to measure 4 inches down from that line using the size 20, and that puts me right here. I'm going to remove this bit because I'm using the shorter skirt, and I'm going to measure over 4 inches the bottom of my skirt from the size 20, and that puts me right here. Now the back skirt does not have a marking for my hip line, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure down from my waistline to my hip on my front skirt so that I can see where my hip should fall on my back skirt. So I've got 9¼ inches. So I'm going to measure down 9¼ and that puts me right here. And now I'm going to draw a horizontal line through the grain line from my center back right to my side seam. I'm just going to write hip right here. Once that's done, I'm going to go and connect my hip line to the hemline, like so. And then I'm going to go back in with my curved ruler and curve from the side seam down to the hip line. Just like so. Once I've got that done, I'm going to put my notch in again at my hip line so that when I cut it apart, it will be easier for me to join it back together. I'm going to put a notch further down as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut out this line again. So this is what my skirt piece looks like. This is my main skirt back. And then this is going to be my godey insert. So I'm going to put these 2 main pieces to the side and work on this godey. All right, this is my side pattern piece. I'm going to measure across at the hem at the 4 inches, and I'm just going to draw in 3 lines, and each line is going to be 1 inch apart. That will make it easy for me to cut it apart. And then I'm just going to connect my lines straight from the hemline, straight the way up to the top of my piece. So that's line 1, line 2, line 3. Now, because we're going to cut these pieces apart, I'm going to go back in and number them in the same way that I did my sleeve piece. So this is going to be piece 1, this is going to be piece 2, this is piece 3, and this is piece 4. Once I've got my numbers in, I can go and cut these pieces apart. Just going to go over my hip line with my Sharpie. 1, to make it easier for you guys to see, and 2, to make it easier for me to line back up my pieces once I've slashed and spread this piece. Right, so these are my 4 pieces, and I can now spread them apart. So in the same way I did at the front, I'm going to put marks 1 inch apart and then draw in lines that are parallel to what my grain line would be. Now I'm going to put numbers in. I'm going to write -1, -2, -3, -4. The other side had positive numbers. This side I'll put negative numbers. You can decide how you want to label your pieces so that you don't get lost. Once that's done, then I'm going to go and cut these pieces apart in the same way that I cut apart my front pieces. All right, so this is what all of my pieces look like next to each other. And I'm going to put my pieces at a spread of, let's say 4 inches. I think maybe 4 inches will do. So I'm just putting in a mark 4 inches from this piece that I have stuck down to my tracing paper. Drawing a line like so. And now I'm sticking down the piece that says -3. I'm just lining up the bottom of my piece with the edge of my paper. That will be the new hemline, and then stick it into place. I'm going to repeat the process right the way across. So I'm going to measure over another 4 inches. Draw a line to mark where it is. Now I'm sticking piece number -2 into place. And I'm just going to make a note that this is my back piece, like so. And I'm just going to continue this process right the way across the board. All right, so this is what my piece looks like. It is huge. And I now need to go and connect my pieces from this point right here, right the way over to this point right here. Now I just realized after sticking my pieces down that the pieces for my center back, like my back pieces, are longer than my front pieces. And that means that the measurement between my waistline and my hip line on my back piece was shorter than the waistline to hip line on the front piece. So you guys just pay careful attention to your measurements so you know how much of that curve you're going to cut into on your main pieces. It's a little bit difficult sometimes to read my ruler accurately from a distance and because of where my light is and so on the table, but I really should make no excuse. I really should be paying better attention. So when you're recreating this look, just make sure that you're measuring accurately. The process is still the same. It's just that the measurement between my front and my back were not the same. So you don't make the same mistake that I did. However, I'm going to work on the back pieces first, and I'll just fold it in half just to make sure that I have the same curve on my back and my front gode piece, and then I'll go back in and remedy it on my front main bodice piece. So I need to connect this line right here to my center line right here, and I want to have like a gentle sort of curve. So I've gone ahead and I've drawn in a horizontal line from my center front right the way to the tip of my first cut line here. Then I'm going to go in and draw a line from this line to the tip of my second line. Then from the tip here to the tip of my third line. And then from the tip of my third line right the way down to the tip of my fourth line. But I am going to use my curved ruler right here just so that I have a nice gentle curve that mimics the curve on my front and back main pieces. Just like so. Okay, this one looks a little bit rough, so I'm just going to go and then sort of true up my pieces. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want it to be, like, you don't want to have any weird sort of jigs. You want to have a smooth connection between your pieces. So I'm going to use this bottom line right here. Now, once I have my lines in place, then I can go ahead and cut them out. Now, because I made a mistake, what I am going to do is I am going to cut up straight along here. Once I have done that, I'm just going to fold my sheet in half right along my center front line. This center front line demarcates where your side seam is on your main pieces, just like so. I'm going to fold my piece back in half so that when I cut out this line along the top, it will be mimicked on the bottom pieces, which, as I said, are a little shorter because of an oversight on my part. So I'm just going to cut right along here. Have a gentle slope right here. So this is what half of it looks like. When I open it up, This is what the pattern piece now looks like. So when I go to cut my fabric, I'm going to cut two. One for the left side of my dress and one for the right side of my dress. All right, folks, that was the hack of the skirt portion of the Simplicity 9598. As you can see, it was not very hard, but again, pay attention to your measurements. I did not pay attention to my measurements, and you guys saw what happened. So do not make the same mistake as I did. Pay attention to your measurements. Make sure you're checking your ruler accurately and whatnot so that your front and your back skirt pieces are identical. You want them to be the same height in terms of that curve. You want them to be the same length at the hemline and so on and so forth. And when you introduce that gathered portion in the center, obviously you want it to fit quite nicely within the arc that is going to be created when we sew our bodice front piece to our skirt back piece because of how this pattern is structured. I'm hoping that you guys enjoy this hacking tutorial, but just before I go, let me pause again to show you guys the fabric that I'm going to be working with. I did put a poll up over on Instagram asking for my Instagram followers to indicate what they thought would be the best mix of these two different colors. Now, at one point, option one, which is the green bodice and then the pink at the sleeves and the godet, was leading, but then option two started edging closer. Then they were side by side. And now I don't even know where the poll is, but I have gone ahead and started cutting out my pattern pieces. I have not finished, but I have made a start, which means by now it's too late for me to turn back. Of course, you do not have to color block your dress if you do not want to, but I just thought that that would add just a little bit more fun and flavor to my make. So let me show you guys the fabric that we're going to be working with. So these are my fabric choices. These are both PK knits, and I have them in these two colors. It sort of reminds me of like a watermelon combination, like this is the skin and like this is the melon. And I think that they really look cute together. I'm hoping that they translate nicely once I get this hack together. Now I bought these two pieces of fabric with the intention of doing a color block dress. So this will fit in perfectly with the hack that I'm doing on this Simplicity 9598. But I'm still trying to figure out which portions of the dress I want in this chartreuse color and which portions of the dress I would prefer in this pink color. So once I get this all sorted, then I'll cut out my pattern pieces and then we will finally be ready to sew. All right, folks, so you have seen the pattern, you have seen the two hacks that I intend to do to this pattern, and you have seen the fabric. So the only thing left to do for us now is to sew up our pattern pieces. Now, again, I'm going to be doing this live on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm hoping to be on live for about 3 hours between 7 and 10. And I don't think I'll be able to get my dress completed within that time limit, but I am going to start it and give it a decent shot and see how far we can get. I'll be really excited if you guys decide to join me on my live. If you're sewing up something, it doesn't necessarily have to be this same pattern. It would be nice to have some sewing company. And even if you're not sewing and you just want to watch, then I'll be happy to have you join me back here on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Sewing Along Live. Now, as I said, I am a little bit nervous. I'm doing this on my own. I've never done it on my own before, but I know you guys are super, super supportive. And so I feel like after a little while, I will fit right in and become very comfortable talking to you guys on a live sew along. Now, Tuesdays, if you are not familiar, is usually a spot for the Black Sewing Network, and I am a huge fan of their live sessions. I tune in all the time to catch their live sew-alongs here on YouTube and sometimes over on TikTok. Now, I like the initiative of the Black Sewing Network, so shout out to Carmen and the group, and I am fitting into one of their spots this week. Now, Aisha has decided that she's going to do her sew-along at midday on Tuesday, which opened up Tuesday evening for me to have my live sew along. Now, I'm not a part of the Black Sewing Network, at least not yet, Carmen. However, I do like to support their work as well. And so I didn't really want to schedule my live at a time when it would clash with one of their live sew-alongs. I know I could have if I wanted to. Carmen gave me the whole go ahead. I knew she would. She's very supportive in that way. But because of my own personal liking, I guess, for Black Sewing Network, I didn't want to do that. But I was super, super excited when Carmen reached back out to let me know that Tuesday evening was now going to be free because Aisha had moved her sewing slot to midday. And so I have jumped right on in to that 7 p.m. scheduled time. So again, if you're not following Black Sewing Network and the amazing creators that are affiliated with Black Sewing Network, then head on over to Instagram, look for the handle Black Sewing Network, and make sure to give this lovely team a follow. Now, that is all I needed to share with you guys today. I'll see you back here again on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for us to sew along with the Simplicity 9598 pattern by Mimi G. And remember, it is going to be a hack because this month is the Pattern Hackathon over on Instagram hosted by yours truly. Now, I forgot to mention, if you guys do not know what I'm talking about regarding the Pattern Hackathon, then I have had, I think, two or three videos here on the channel. I'll drop them in here so that you can find them easily. Head on over to those videos, see what the hackathon is about, and then head on over to my Instagram at @onsocial, where you can join in on all the pattern hacking fun. So again, that is all I needed to share with you guys today, and I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Peace.